Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, coming at you with some South Carolina football talk. And to do our very best in talking about the Gamecocks, we got to bring in Will Gunter. You can catch him on the all-new early game 107.5 The Game. Will, how you doing tonight?
We're ready for spring, maybe a little bit of Sweet 16 action this weekend, some Final Four next weekend, and better weather down here.
All right, folks, if you haven't listened to Will and I talk before, here's the deal. I'm in Connecticut. He's in South Carolina. So it wouldn't surprise you that our conversation goes something like this before we started to record. I'm optimistic because it got up to 48 degrees today, and Will's shivering because it's down to 54.
Yeah, we're angry. The lake's right out there, and the boat is ready to go out, and it's not quite time. And so we need a little bit warmer weather. We got to get into the mid-60s at least.
Yeah, this is pretty much like late, mid-November football weather down there in South Carolina. So you don't want to see that for quite some time once it warms up here. But we are always, of course, in football mode. I know you guys have to cover everything down there in South Carolina with everything going on. But, of course, college football reigns right here. So spring practice, workout number 7 in the books. What are your takeaways? And I know it's difficult because you don't get much news out of camp and aren't able to watch the practices, but what are you hearing thus far?
Yeah, North Korea puts out more news than we get from Will Muschamp, or lets out more secrets. I think the main takeaways that we've got is the difference in this program today as opposed to when Will Muschamp first took over. And let's not pretend like that the roster has been turned over and that this team is ready to go compete for an SEC championship against Georgia and Alabama. I do think they're going to be a dark horse. You're probably going to hear them a lot about as a dark horse because of Jake Bentley. But obviously what you're going to see here is a team that's kind of very prepared to go into 2018 and put forth the effort that can put themselves in position to be a contender. And so a lot of the talk so far has been centering around the change in the dynamics of the team and the dynamics of the roster, adding depth at running back, at the wide receiver position, the changes to the offensive line, things of that nature. That has been the main discussion. But again, not a lot said. Been a very quiet spring practice, which is good. A few minor injuries here and there, nothing to anybody substantial that would need to really be discussed. But the bottom line is it's kind of business as usual. And I think for Will Muschamp, it's a guy who kind of is enjoying this. You don't have the scrutiny that he got at Florida. You have a guy who's kind of being able to build the program, which is crazy. You and I could have had this conversation, 5 years ago, coming off an 11-2 season for Steve Spurrier, and the place that the South Carolina program was and the scrutiny that it would have been given. When you go 3-9 and then 6-7, all of a sudden there's a lot of people very happy. And so Will Muschamp's kind of being allowed to do it at his own pace, the way maybe he wanted to do it, as opposed to the way Florida fans had seen it done with Urban Meyer and Steve Spurrier. So a very quiet, very relaxed, very good spring, at least through today.
Things change so quickly in college football. It's just funny to think about those 3 consecutive 11-2 seasons, major bowl wins against usually top-tier Big Ten teams. And at the time, the domination over Clemson, and it just took a couple years and the complete reversal of fortunes for the 2 main schools there in the state of South Carolina, with Clemson taking over. But maybe the Gamecocks have a little fight in them and certainly showed that against just about everybody else except for Clemson the last couple years. So as we get near the spring game, which is coming up March 31st, noon Eastern Time, SEC Network, what do you want to hear for the next few weeks, and what's probably going to hit the field during the spring game that's going to make you feel better about this team going into August?
You're asking the wrong person. You're asking the person who's but you know what? I shouldn't say that. You're asking, I think, the person who's in agreement with a lot of South Carolina fans. In terms of the spring game, people want to go see the 13 freshmen that have enrolled early. A guy like the Carrion Joyner, a guy like Deshaun, a quarterback out of Fort Dorchester, just how he plays. A guy like Deshaun Fenwick, a running back. They want to see how he performs and what he does. So I think when you talk about spring and what happens at the game, it's a little bit different as opposed to something like the offense, which Brian McClendon's now running. You're not going to see it at the spring game on March 31st. We're gonna have to wait until September to actually see what they have to offer in that situation. But I think a lot of people next week, when they go out there, they want to watch some of these freshmen and see what kind of class Will Muschamp brought in and who can make an impact here in 2018.